I want to give the tap dancing sellout of the day award to Poetic Flakko. Now, who's Poetic? I'm Poetic Flakko, okay? No, but all jokes aside, the tap dancing sellout of the day award goes to Poetic Flakko.
What's going on, everybody? This is Afro Think Tank. Today, I want to address this Poetic Flakko situation. All right. Now, I know a lot of my subscribers don't know who Poetic Flakko is because they don't watch that kind of degenerate content. All right. But because I feel like it's important, because it's a good learning situation, I'm gonna talk about it. Now, y'all have heard me talk about Flakko, how he's basically a parasite in the black community. He's a parasite. He is, for all intents and purposes, what some disgruntled African Americans would call, which I don't use this word, okay, because it's a derogatory term, but this is what they would be called a tether. All right, this is what they mean when they say tether, even though it's a derogatory term and I don't use it, right, to refer to any Africans, right? But Flakko he was born in America, but by way of Liberia, which still should make him a, probably more than likely 50% chance he's still would be FBA, right? All right, but for all intents and purposes, he's first generation. You call him a first generation African. His parents were from Liberia and he was raised here. And of course, not of course. Sometimes these Africans who move to America, they move to white communities, white neighborhoods, right? And they're inundated with white culture. So their experience of America is white culture, right? And sometimes this turns Africans into Afropans, right? Because they have to live with these white people and agree with them during social settings. Most of the time they move into conservative states, right? And conservative means racism, all right? And the fact that some of these Africans who consider themselves conservative, they mix up African conservatism with American conservatism. So they think they are relating to Africans via conservatism. But conservatism is different depending on who you're talking to. African conservatism is social conservatism. Most black people are socially conservative, which is completely and totally distinct from political conservatism. All right, that's the problem. We're mixing two different things. So African people in general, all African Americans, continental Africans, Caribbean, we are socially conservative, meaning we like to conserve our African culture, to conserve it, our African way of being. That's what conservatism means to black people. That's if you're conservative. But in America, if you are conservative politically, you are with conservative white people who mean to conserve their culture of white supremacy. So African conservatism and American or white Western conservatism are the opposite and enemies of each other. But they can't comprehend this when they come over here. They just hear the word conservatism, right? So you got a lot of Afropans who under the idea of conservatism, and a lot of them are staunchly in the Christian church. So a mix between African conservatism being mixed up or misidentified as being relatable to white Christian conservatism, along with their indoctrination to Christianity, right? They are susceptible to going along with white supremacy, right? Or not understanding, because in these environments, they don't understand the actual black plight in America. They accept all the excuses white people make for their diabolical and subhuman actions, right? They accept all the excuses that white supremacy makes about their racist institutions. And a lot of these Afropans, they're sponsored by some white woman. They're married to some white woman. They're either married to a white woman or they're married to a highly uneducated village African woman who they make sure stays uneducated when they come here. Trust me. Because once an educated African woman comes here, she's not conservative, right? Because she understands the difference between white Christian conservatism, which is white supremacy and racism, right? And that's political conservatism, right? She understands that she's just a social conservative, meaning she wants to conserve her African pride, her African freedom. And she also wants to liberate herself from the conservative, Christian conservative ideologies of her African man, who tends to like to emulate the white man in their dealings with their black woman. All right. So when people come to America, and they take a real good look at the political landscape, they even become intelligent and become progressive liberals, right? Because they want to liberate black people and people who are being disenfranchised from the conservative / racist system that means to hold people down. Because a lot of these Africans that come over here, they're special. These are special Africans who can get that visa, right? These are upper class, middle upper class members of African society who cannot relate to the everyday African. They come over here because they have special privileges or because a white person sponsored them, and on behalf of white people, they kiss the white man's ass. Now, this also happens in the African American community. Look at Clarence Thomas. Clarence Thomas is a great example of an African American who decided to capitulate to white supremacy to gain all the benefits and butter biscuits that white supremacy has to offer. Okay? And Flakko is one of those, but he's an African version. These are all Coonarians. These are all people who are willing to sell their community out for $1 because they have no guidelines. They have no morals. They have no principles. They're all about money. They're in ultra max survival hustle mode, right? So Flakko, the first time I seen Flakko, I seen him as a recruiter for white supremacy. Adam 22, his show, where he would highlight the most degenerate portions of the African American community in order for him to make money and infuse more white dollars into the white community. As there are many white content creators who dip their toe into the black community in order to make those dollars because, like I said, black people are always on stage, especially African Americans. So Flakko, right? Flakko being a black person, right? He's, for all intents and purposes, I would consider him an African American. I'm not like FBI. I'm not like them. Like, they want to parse and piece. To me, Flakko's an African American. He's by way of Liberia, right? If he's born here, he's from Africa, and he's also an American. Therefore, bam, bam, right? But he's more specific a Liberian American. Only African Americans are called African Americans because everybody else who come from Africa know exactly what country or nationality they come from. All right. So I don't know why people mix that up. It's like they're trying to purposely be ignorant in order to push along their stupid, ignorant diaspora war arguments, right? But Flakko is a parasite because Flakko decided to capitulate to white supremacy to make his first dollar. He was even asked by white supremacists, hey, are you willing to sell your soul? He said yes. And he admitted just as much. He has plenty of content with him talking trash about African Americans because he knows talking trash about African Americans as an African can make you money, especially if you can be animated about it, right? And so he started to do that, but then it started to dry up a little bit, right? And he switched his grift from bringing and recruiting the most degenerate members of the African American community in order to highlight them on Adam 22, the white man shows, to make him a millionaire, right? He started to go off on his own and do his own thing and try to spin it as if now he goes from a capitulator of white supremacy, a articulator of white supremacy, to all of a sudden a pro-black, pan-African pro-black type of pseudo activist, right? And then I started to hear other people call him a fake Pan-African or YouTube keyboard Pan-African, which irritated me because Poetic Flakko he's not a Pan-African. He's not even pro-black. He's not pro-African. He's not pro-black. He's pro-Flakko. He's pro himself. He's pro his dollars. And he says just as much. I really wish that people would believe people when they tell you who they are. Right? But the problem we have in our society is that we have too many people entertained by mindless entertainment. And it's so ridiculous that we are falling into a trap that where we value these mindless entertainers and then we take sometimes their word on serious topics, we take it seriously. And we hold too much value in their opinions when they shouldn't have any value in their opinions because their opinions hold no water. They have no weight, right? They have no receipts in their past to say that these people are earnest when they're speaking about these topics. You can tell when Poetic Flakko talks that he doesn't actually care about what he's talking about. He doesn't care about any of the black victims of white supremacy. He doesn't care about white supremacy or racism. He works with white supremacy and racism in order to push his agenda. And his agenda is to make as much money as he possibly can. I don't know who his subscribers are. I think most of his subscribers are white people who like to watch black degenerate shit on the internet. Most of these people who sell black drama, who sell black degenerateness, their audience are white people who need to justify their own racism by watching black people justify it for them. There's a huge market for that. Now, how would it look if an African American moved to Liberia, right? Just imagine this. An African American moved to Liberia, or an African family moves to Liberia and has a child, and that child is a first generation Liberian, but they're also an African American. What if that child decided to exploit all the degenerate things about Liberia in order to make money because it was fashionable? So what if the African American, the first generation African American in Liberia started to talk about the cannibalism amongst the people in the villages, how money rituals where people kill people for money, or the gang violence, or the cocaine and heroin epidemic in Liberia, right? What if the black African American went to Liberia and started talking about the gangs and highlighted and amplifies the gang culture in Liberia? What if the African American content creator went over there and started talking about the schemes and scams and amplify the schemes and scams of Liberia and talk about nothing but degenerate stuff about Liberia? And what if the African American content creator went over there, right, and found a white colonizer and talked about Liberians to white people in Liberia while living in Liberia and making money off Liberians? What if the whole world will go crazy? The whole black world will go crazy. Like, oh, where's African American there? So, but we have a lot of Afropans. I call them Afropans, right? They either moved to America or their parents came here from America, and because they live with white people and they don't turn off the coon switch, they keep the coon switch on, right, 24/7, right? They are not inundated with the black community, and they're also competing with the African American community because they're either jealous of the African American community for being amplified on the global stage, because there's definitely some African content creators who wish they can be as popular and relevant as African Americans. Like, there's a few content creators that wish to be travel vloggers, right? And they get mad at other African American travel vloggers because they get more attention when they travel around Africa in various other countries than them. So what do? They create hate channels where all they do is talk about other African American travel vloggers, and they look for the one or two degenerate travel vloggers out of the hundreds of thousands, all right, of African Americans traveling around the world and all these years, after all the videos and positive influences and positive things that we do overseas when we do go there, and how we're treated and how we're respectful. They'll go find the one or two idiots and they'll highlight that and say that's all African Americans because they're jealous of African Americans. So they hate that when they try to do their travel videos, that they're not getting any play because they feel like they're more African than the African American. So they feel like they should get, everybody wants to be Watamaya. Everybody can't be Watamaya. There's like 3-4 travel content creators that are African that are up there, right? And all the other African content creators that cannot be them hate on the African Americans that are doing what they're doing because they wish they can do that too, right? But a lot of them live in America, right? So they feel like they should have more, they should be highlighted. So what they do is they hate on African Americans, right? Like they have channels that's just dedicated to hating African Americans, which also fuels the diaspora wars. But then you got these jollifs, right? These guys over here who are exacerbating the diaspora wars because you have this African, right? Who, like I said, I would consider an African American, but some people consider them, they are second generation immigrants, openly disrespecting and exploiting African American culture for his own pockets. And pretending like he cares about African Americans and their plight in America, which we know for a fact that he doesn't care, because he would have cared back then, right? He would have cared back then, but he doesn't. If you notice, the content creator grifter are switching their grifts because it's no longer cool to be a Trumper. I said this years ago. I said when Donald Trump becomes a lame duck, when it looks like he's on his way out, everybody who's grifting are going to start to have a come to Jesus moment, and they're going to start pivoting away from Donald Trump. They're going to start pivoting away from white Christian conservative racism light. They're going to start pivoting away from being a contractor for white supremacy. They're going to start pivoting away from being a black conservative, because you can't find one black conservative on YouTube that can explain to them what black conservatism in America has done for or wants to do for African Americans. You can't find one black conservative who talks about the policies of American conservatism and how that benefits African Americans. The only thing you hear from black conservatives is owning the libs, ad hominem attacks, and culture war attacks, because they like to attach the social conservative practices of African Americans, continental Africans, and Caribbeans, and they like to marry that or mesh that or mix that up with political socialism or political conservatism, which is a totally different monster and has a totally different set of criteria, when it comes to who and what side you're on. Because most black people are progressive and liberal politically, but are socially conservative. Most white people are socially conservative and politically conservative because politics is their culture, it's their religion. If you know anything about European culture, you'd see they always divide themselves amongst ideological lines, and they've never had a sense of community or cohesion with each other, right? So yeah, Poetic Flakko is what, if there ever was somebody called a tether, Afropeans who come to America who talk shit about African Americans are true tethers. In the purest or definition of the word, if that word had a real meaning, right? But it don't, right? But African people who come to America and talk shit about African Americans as if they are because they're competing with us or because they're jealous of us. African people who come to America and live and thrive and make money off the African American community while disrespecting the African American community at the same time, those are Afropeans, and they should be. Those are the ones that should be deported because they don't appreciate this. They don't appreciate the situation they find themselves in, because if it wasn't for us, they wouldn't be in that situation. And because they're not educated on American history, they go about with their big chests, running their mouths and creating problems and creating situations that they shouldn't be doing. Right? But Poetic Flakko, he knows exactly what he's doing. He's a parasite in the community. You should not be subscribed to him. You shouldn't watch him. His channel should be eliminated. He should not be allowed to make money off us. And that's the truth. But unfortunately, we live in America where talking shit about black people gets you paid. We're talking shit about African Americans will get you paid. So since the money is still available, since white people still passing out them dry ass butter biscuits to all these Afropeans and African Americans who decide to sell out their own ethnic group for that white dollar, it's going to continue. But it's up to us, right? The people who have common sense, who actually care about our people, is to continuously call them out and never let them relax. Yeah, they're going to keep making money because white people are still going to watch them to validate their racism. Because as long as a black person is saying it, they can say that they're not racist because the black person said it too. And that right there, that little line is the whole reason why black Qunarians and Afropeans can make so much money and they get pushed in the algorithm. Anyway, you guys tell me what you think about this in the comments section. It's Afro Think Tank. Learn something, teach something. I'm out.
You have that wake-up call, and that wake-up call for me was the rise of white nationalism. When I realized it's not about policies, bruh. What I realized was these people believe that we don't belong. These people believe that this country belongs to white folks, that this is a country for white folks and by white folks, and black folks do not belong in this country.
I'm so pro-black, you can't get me to involve myself in diaspora wars. I'm every nigga on this earth. I'm African, I'm Caribbean, I'm Afro-Latina, I'm Afro-European. If you're a nigga, I am you, you're me. I don't know what to tell you. I don't know what to tell you. You're me, you're me, I'm you. I don't know.
Free Sudan, boycott diamonds and gold. Free Sudan, boycott diamonds and gold. We most definitely cannot forget about the people of Sudan.
Thanks for watching Afro Think Tank. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. And follow me on Substack and Patreon for more content. Remember, it's pan-Africanism or nothing.